This podcast is part of the Spoon Podcast Network, home of smart conversations that feed your mind.
Hi, I am Amy Wu, and welcome again to Women Innovators in Food and Farming, where I spotlight some of the entrepreneurs behind the innovations shaping the future of food and agriculture. I am the founder from Farms to Incubators, a multimedia platform that tells the stories of women in this field. I am very excited to have with me today our guest, Christine Gemperle, an almond farmer from California's Central Valley who embraces innovation and new ways of farming. First, a short intro, and then we will jump right into the discussion. Christine has been farming almonds with her brother since 1998. She was raised in an almond and poultry farming family in California's Central Valley. She earned her bachelor's degree in biology from UC Santa Cruz and has a master's degree in fisheries from Utah State University. And she and her brother, Eric, manage and operate 135 acres of almonds in the Central Valley. She's also a member of the Blue Diamond Growers Cooperative, where she served as a grower liaison, and she's currently on the board of directors for the Almond Board of California. She also serves on the boards of Project APIS. We look forward to hearing about that, and is the co-founder of a newly formed group called Women in Almonds Group. So that's amazing. That's a lot. Thank you, Christine, for being with us today. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in my home office here on the farm in Ceres, California.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your farm. Bring us to your farm.
Yeah, so it's actually a really small operation by California standards. Actually, some people might consider it medium sized, but we're small in that we don't actually have any employees. So it's just my brother and I. And then sometimes we kind of drag in some of our kids to do a little work on the side, but we can manage almost all the work year round, just the two of us. And it really gives us this very complete knowledge of everything that's going on the farm. We like to incorporate a lot of regenerative practices, although I wouldn't say we're not organic but we recognize the value in those practices and what they do, what they add to our farming operation. We've also added a lot of technology over the years. I wouldn't say we have the most expensive technology out there, but we've been able to incorporate it in a way that actually makes our lives easier and helps us farm better.
Oh, well, that's amazing. I mean, 135 acres, as you noted, Christine, can maybe considered small, right, for California. But I remember myself trying to farm on even half an acre, and that was a lot for me. So I can't imagine the two of you, right, handling this. Now, you mentioned a few things, including the innovation part and the technology part. Share a little bit, or take us, how do you use that when you farm almonds?
Well,
Does that help you guys?
yeah, so most of the technology that we're using right now has to do with how we irrigate and how we turn on the water, how we measure how much water goes on the trees. So we're able to actually program and remotely operate our irrigation. It's really, really helpful because even though we still have to go down there and physically check the sprinklers, you might want to start those sprinklers at 6 o'clock, but you don't want to start checking them until 8, until they've cleared a little bit. And that's a 40-minute drive away, right? And so we're able to start and stop things. And also, you don't want to have to, if you're going to run it for 12 or 18 hours, you don't want to have to wait 18 hours or drive back. So it's saving a lot in time and gas. That's for sure. But then there's the whole other side of weather stations and monitoring soil moisture and wind speeds. Like if we're going to go down there and put on, say, a nutrient spray, we're not going to do that when it's windy. But how do you know how windy it is down there when it's a 40-minute drive away? And you're able to access a lot of information on the weather just from your home, from your phone. I can do so much from my phone.
So much from your smartphone. That's amazing. I want to hear a little bit more about the soil aspect as well, right? Because soil, of course, is so critical to all kinds of farming, right? And productivity. How do you monitor the soil moisture and so forth with your, maybe through your phone, I should say?
Well, it's through a system called Ranch Systems, and we have 2 weather stations on each of our ranches that have a moisture probe in the ground. And so you can go and log in, and then you can look at the moisture content in the soil at like 4 inches, 8 inches, 12, all the way down to 60 inches on one ranch. And then the other ranch, I think it goes down to like 36 inches. And so you get an idea when you irrigate, one, how that water you're putting on is moving through the soil profile, because you can watch it each day as it goes down, as layers dry out. And you can match that up against like what you did irrigate and what you do want to irrigate, and also what the weather has been. And that is actually another bit of technology we work with. So we have the tech that physically turns the system on and off, but then we have a platform that we work with, and we've been helping to develop this platform with the people who founded it. It's called Irrigation Management Online. And it actually uses algorithms, and in those algorithms are the type of soil that you have, and the textures, and what the needs of the crop are at certain times of the year based on development, and then also what the weather was the week before and what the weather is predicted in the coming week. And
That's
so
amazing.
it is. Yeah, you should talk to them.
That is very cool. So, what does a typical day then look like? I mean, we're still talking about, over 100 acres and just the 2 of you. And also you mentioned some of the innovation that's been helpful, but what's a typical day like? What time do you wake up and how does it end the day?
I wake up somewhere between 4:30 and 5. That's just kind of how my natural clock is working these days. I'm on summer hours. We actually like working really early because, as you know, California is hot and you want to get all your really hard work done before the heat sets in. So I'll get up. If it's an irrigation day, I'll go out to the canal, open the gate, turn on the system. The home place where I do irrigation doesn't have it fully automated. It's our other ranch that's far away. And then I'll check sprinklers. If it's not a day to check, while I'm checking sprinklers, I'm also monitoring bug traps for pests that actually attack the crop. And I'm doing counts, and I'm figuring out, what the life cycle is of that particular insect, so I know if I have to treat or not, or when to treat. If it's not an irrigation day and the ground is dry enough, I might be in there during the summer mowing the orchard, because I keep cover crop in there. It's great for soil health, water penetration, harboring beneficial insects, but you do have to keep it in check to a certain level, because almonds are actually harvested off the ground. So right before harvest, we do need to have a manageable and clean orchard floor.
Wow.
And then sometimes we do have to treat for certain insects. If we need to control an ant population, we might be putting ant bait down. We don't do a lot of insecticides, that is, because our cover crops do a really good job with creating or providing habitat for insects that do a lot of control. There are so many different jobs throughout the year. I tell people every year is the same, but every day is different.
Well, the cover cropping part, Christine, goes into the part when we talked about the sustainable, right, or regenerative aspect of it. I'd love to nerd out a little bit more about the cover crops. What kind of cover crops are you using or maybe experimenting with? What has worked so far?
Well, I've been cover cropping for over 10 years. Actually, I would say our orchard was one of the first ones in California to really start working with it, cover crops on a regular basis. I started with doing just mustard. It was easy to grow, beautiful, and I put it right between the trees. And that was back when everybody was like, no, you don't want to put it in the orchard and having that bloom at the same time. It's going to compete with the trees. But actually research showed from UC Davis that they did not. The bees preferred almond blooms over mustard. And so I followed the research and like I'm putting it in the rows. And then I wanted to try clover as well
Mhm.
because I know that clover is nitrogen fixing. I was like, if I can get some free nitrogen, that's a bonus. So I started doing every other row mustard and every other row clover. And then every year or 2 years, I would switch it. So now I kind of have clover and mustard in all the rows. There's a couple other mixes I've tried. We did kind of a regenerative practice called
Mhm.
whole orchard recycling, where we grind up a whole orchard and put it back in the ground, when the orchard comes
Oh,
to
wow.
its the end of its life. And there's special mixes that you put in an orchard in the ground after whole orchard recycling that just do better. And most of them are
Mhm.
nitrogen fixing ones because the breakdown of all that woody biomass actually it ties up nitrogen from the tree. So what you really want something that's heavy nitrogen producing. And actually that one's I like that one quite a bit. There's like peas in it, and so you can actually like harvest peas and eat them as well.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. In terms of almonds itself, they're pretty water hungry, aren't they? In
You
terms
know
of, yeah.
that Well, there was a Mother Jones article that came out, oh gosh, I think it was 10 years ago now. And they determined, yes, a gallon per nut. And I
Yeah,
love
that's what I
this.
hear.
Yeah, and that sounds horrible. But the really sad thing about that is they reported that, but they actually didn't really report what any other crop actually uses as well. And as it turns
Mm.
out, everything we eat, everything we stick in our mouth takes water. Some crops take more water than almonds. Some
Hmm.
some take less. But it also what it didn't account for is that you're not just growing the almond, you're growing a whole tree. And that tree is actually sequestering a lot of carbon. So it's pulling a lot of carbon out of the environment. So it has this other task. Also, you're growing a very nutrient dense food. Almonds are very, very nutrient dense. We know they're high in protein. They have a lot of other
Yes, I just saw
benefits.
some almond butter, or it looks like it's becoming more and more popular, right? Just one of
Yeah,
many products.
it's
Yeah.
delicious. It's really good. I don't want to
It
put
really
down
is.
peanuts or anything, but almond
No,
butter
I
is the
don't either.
bomb.
I don't either. I don't want to put down peanuts, but
No, I
almond
like
butter
peanut
is
butter
pretty
too.
delicious with toast. So, in
Yeah.
terms of the your farm, you and your brother's farm, I mean, how much roughly do you guys produce annually, and where can we find your almonds? I mean, I happen to be a big fan of almonds. I love almonds. I could eat a whole can of them.
Well,
Every. So,
we
where can we find your almonds, and how much do you guys produce every year, roughly?
Well, when so right now we have some orchards that are just ramping up production, but when everything is in full production, we can be producing anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds per acre per year. So do the math on that with like
Hmm,
135 acres of trees, which
that's a lot.
it's a lot. As far as finding our almonds, actually, I am in a growers co-op, and some of you out there might recognize the name Blue Diamond. They're a co-op that's been
Yes.
around for over 100 years, and it's a great model for smaller growers because we can kind of pool our resources when it comes to, processing the almonds, creating product, marketing the product. So, we all own a part of it. It's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Yes, I think I have heard of Blue Diamond. Definitely. In terms of your background, you come from a family, correct, that farmed almonds, right? Is that correct? Or how many or poultry and almonds? Is that right? And you grew up in the Central Valley. Maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself as well, and what it was like growing up on a
Yeah.
farm.
Well, my dad was an immigrant to the United States. He came in the 1960s from Switzerland with his brother, or he followed his brother, and they started an almond and poultry business. My dad was in charge of the almond side of the business, and so that's what I grew up in, knowing, riding around on the tailgate of the truck, going and irrigating with dad when it was all flood irrigation. And so it seemed very natural when I came back to California that it felt like that was something, even though I had gone off and got this degree and I had been working in fisheries for a while, there was something that drew me back to farming. It's it's just in your blood. So my brother and I started the business together.
Oh, okay. So it's a separate business that you guys started. It
Yeah.
wasn't the original family farm, right? That you guys that the family owned. But here you studied biology at UC Santa Cruz and then fisheries at the at Utah State University. What were you at the time thinking of doing with the degrees? Where were you headed with that?
I was going to work in fisheries, probably in environmental systems. I did a lot of food web studies at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I thought I was headed to working for like Fish and Game or something like that. And I
Uh-huh.
actually did work on salmon on the rivers right here in the Central Valley as my first job out of
Oh,
grad school.
wow.
Yeah. It actually gave me it's I love that I have that background, and I went through that whole research process.
Mm-hmm.
And my research was on Lake Tahoe on salmon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty
Very.
cool. And it just the scientific process, it's the same across all the disciplines. It's about the process. And so I have taken that and applied it to agriculture. And of course, I have the basic biology background as well. I just love research. And so I've approached farming from a very uh, research heavy thought process.
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, when you talk about the details, even with the right, the cover cropping or the types of cover crops, I'm sure you did a lot of research, right? Even with the types of cover crops to use, right?
Yeah.
And the details, so much goes into that as well. So, in terms of going back to farming, you said it's in your blood, and your brother started a farm together. Was there a certain moment that you were like, just like, let's do this? I mean, that's a big decision to start a farm, right? And make that your livelihood. So can you talk a little bit about maybe that starting something with your brother and how that emerged?
Actually, it happened while I was still in Utah and wrapping up my thesis and getting ready to do my defense on that. That summer that I was there, I had a vegetable garden. I was like, oh, I want to grow my own vegetables. And it turned out to be this massive project where I grew everything from seed. And I was like one of the only people doing like heirloom vegetables in the area. And then I got the one fancy, nice restaurant to buy my vegetables. I was like, you know what? I really love growing things. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I called my dad and I said, I think I want to farm, but I think I can do fisheries and farm. Dad's like, well, yeah, you can like farm on the weekends, have a small farm and farm on the weekends and, have a full-time job. I'm like, okay. And so I came back, I got a job, and we found a small farm to buy. And then we found another slightly larger farm and,
Hmm.
and he's like, your brother can be your partner. He's so good with equipment. It was a great match.
Hmm.
And after a few years doing the fisheries and the farming, and then, I got married and got pregnant, I was like, something's got to give. And so I gave up fisheries because I really loved farming. And plus, it was my home. This farm is also my home.
So your house is on the farm.
Yeah, right in the middle of it.
Oh, that is very cool. So, in terms of fisheries, though, do you still miss that, or are there times when you miss the fisheries aspect?
I do miss some of it. And actually, I haven't completely divorced myself from it. In fact, there are a lot of times, we have water issues in California, and those issues involve farmers and fish all the time. And I'm able to weigh in on some of those conversations with what I know, especially since I actually did study specifically salmon life cycles. And I
Mm.
did work on Chinook salmon in the Central Valley. I mean, we were the first people to do radio tracking on salmon
Oh,
smolts
wow.
going out to the ocean. So, I mean, yeah, I haven't really, I'm not up to date on all the latest fisheries technology but I know the science.
Very cool. In terms of almond farming, going back to this again, so I hear about this. You make it sound easy, but it's anything but easy, right? Talk a little bit about some of the challenges of being an almond farmer, and what are some of the solutions that you found as to how to tackle those challenges. I mean, water is one of them, right?
It is. So, yes, water, like I said before, is a challenge, especially when we're going through a drought cycle. But over the years, we have really talked about this word resilience and how do we gain it. And one of the biggest gains in becoming resilient is one, working on your soil so that you don't lose water, whether it's to evaporation, to runoff, through poor infiltration.
Hmm.
How do you get your tree's roots to go deeper? How do you make that soil healthier because so the tree can utilize the water more efficiently? So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is how do you manage the water that you're given or
Mhm.
that you pay for or that you have access to in such a way that you are maybe, saving some for the year before, but
Hmm.
applying just what you need for the trees and for that crop. And that's where the technology comes in. It really helps with that.
And then there's also there's of course the co-op, and also you sit on the board, right, of the almond board as well. So maybe share a little bit about how being involved in the industry through the trade associations has helped you as a farmer, or how does that community really help with the almond industry in general as well?
Well, there's a couple ways that I really engage in the almond board activities with the research side of it and the production research side of it. So being on those committees that actually reviews the research proposals and then sees the work first, it's so cool to have, first looks at what's coming down the pipe and the knowledge that we need to move forward and become better farmers. I get, whether it's on nitrogen management or it's on some disease that we're
Mm-hmm.
working on. The other way, actually, I'm on the nutrition committee. And so we're also looking at the health benefits of almonds as it applies to lots of, whether it's heart health or diabetes or skin health. There's so many studies that we've looked at
Yeah,
human
this
health.
is interesting because farmers are incredibly busy, right? Busy is highlighted and bolded,
Yeah. How do
especially
you do it?
during the so. But it seems to me that the almond industry, there are a lot of farmers that are really involved with the different committees on the different boards and stuff. So, would you call it is it very unique in this almond farming industry that everybody's very collaborative, or maybe you could share a little bit more about that model?
Well, I owe it to the fact that the Almond Board of California is a federal marketing order, and every single grower pays 3 cents for every single pound that they produce to fund it. So we are funding all of this ourselves. Yeah, we have some government money that comes in, but the bulk of it is all funded by us. So of course, us growers want to get involved and have a
Mm,
say in how our money is used collectively, for the benefit of
right.
everybody in the industry. And it's when we go to Washington D.C., and meet with the USDA or some of the other agencies, they always say the Almond Board of California is the gold standard of federal marketing orders because
Mm,
we really have it together. And there's a lot of global marketing and a lot of stuff about food safety that's in there, our
mhm.
nutritional research, and we're also working on biomass. I mean, we have done a ton of research that looks at the other products that come out of the orchard and how beneficial they are. Like the hull, which is sort of the leathery sort of fruit that
Mhm.
covers the almond, is so nutritious, and we've been treating
Oh, I
or
did not
feeding
know.
it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we've been feeding it to cows, like lactating cows, and it's great for lactating cows. They have four stomachs. It's easy for them to digest. But the truth is, if we get it in the right form, it is safe for human consumption. And it has a ton of antioxidants and possibilities. So,
Oh, that's really good to know. You also sit on the board of the Project APIS. Is it the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund, or is it two separate? Tell us a little bit about that project.
yeah, so they originally were one organization, Project APSM, which focused on honeybee health.
Hmm.
And they also, actually, they're the ones who started the cover cropping program in California in almonds. And then they had the Bee and Butterfly Habitat Fund, which was basically more of a Midwest based organization that worked on habitat for the rest of the year, because these bees are moving back and forth between California and the Midwest. And so we were looking to actually create better environments for these colonies when they're not in California. And also, we wanted strong colonies for when they were in California, because we need them for pollination. And so there's been a lot of research that has been funded over the years to support both of those. But now the two organizations operate, I mean, they're still like, I call them sister organizations. They operate separately now because it just got too big for one,
Ah, I
or,
see.
just one body. But a lot of us do still sit on both boards.
Oh, that's great to know, and also the the pollination aspect of it, right? The importance of bees, so critical to the almond industry as well, right? That's a whole other conversation about that. But you
Yeah.
also are the creator or launched the Women in Almonds group, I hear.
Yeah, we kind of adjusted that to women in tree nuts because we didn't want to leave out
Oh, Women in
pistachios
Tree
and
Nuts.
almond, or pistachios and
Yeah,
walnuts, because they're our friends too. And a lot of farmers might
understandably.
farm all three. It's been, it's sort of,
So yeah, I want to know like what inspired you to create that, and how do you guys get together? And when you guys get together, what do you guys do together?
well, it's really about camaraderie. It's about support in the industry, and networking, and also about mentoring young women coming in. We had a scholarship. We're working on getting a scholarship out there to women, young women, going to college, who want to enter into some field that will lead them to the almond industry. And it could be, it could be research, scientific research. It could be communications. It also could be ag business. So it's very broad. I mean, if you think about it, farming requires so many different disciplines to come together to actually make successful farm
Mm,
operations. So it would make sense to, fund a
right.
scholarship
So
that covers all of them.
right. So it's everything from young people, young women who want to actually farm, right? What I'm
Right?
hearing, to tell stories about almond farming, right? You mentioned
Yeah.
communication as well. That is really exciting. And can anyone join, or how does that work? Do you need to be in the
Well,
industry?
I mean, yeah, you have to be a woman or identify as a woman. I mean, it's all good. And yeah, it's really informal at this point. There's like no dues or memberships. And,
I
we'll
see.
have events, usually say, at the Almond Board conference, we'll have a event where women can just get together and
Hmm.
network. And if they want to make a donation, they can. It just goes into the scholarship fund. Um, and
Very cool.
then we did one, I think, at American Pistachio Growers Conference. So things like that. But sometimes I've had at my own house, just for some of the local women, I've had what we called kitchen conferences. So
Oh.
I
Mhm.
have one of those pizza ovens. And so I opened in January, had 2 weekends in a row where anybody who wanted to come over and hang out and talk trees um, could, eat pizza and chill.
That sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds very, very delicious as well, since you're
Yeah,
there
yeah.
also. Um, so women in the industry, so are there more women coming into the almond industry, or the, let's just say, tree nuts, more women farmers, or what are you seeing
There are a
in the
lot
next
of women
generation?
in
Mm-hmm.
almonds and in tree nuts in general. They sit in a lot of different seats. And if you were to go to the Almond Board of California, it is very heavily staffed by women. Most of the researchers that we work with are women. It's pretty cool. Um, there are less actual farmers, like standalone farmers like myself, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that there aren't women farming. They might be sort of in partnership with their husband or play like an auxiliary role.
Mm-hmm.
But there are women that are certified, crop consultants that are out there. There's a mentoring program at the Almond Board, and I'm a mentor, and my mentee, she totally works in the nutrition field, plant nutrition field. She's highly qualified. Um, so
Well,
yeah, they're everywhere. And you know what? Now that when you go to the almond conference, you see
mhm.
so many women everywhere. And it used to be just like dudes in a plaid shirt with a vest and boots. And
So what
now
is changing? So what is changing? What's drawing more women into this area, you think,
I
or
think
the
because
next gen?
a lot of women go to college now and they're from the Central Valley and ag is what they know, and dads now don't look at their daughters and say like, oh, well, they just don't look at their daughters that way. Oh, you're just going to get married and have kids. They're like, no, she's going to college.
And she's
She's
going to
been,
grow almonds.
yeah. Or if you're a dairy person, like, no, she
Yeah.
knows cows better than I
Hmm.
do.
Yeah. Well, being out there in the field is certainly not easy, right? Physically, I mean, right? And it's long days and all and so forth. So, and you've been doing this for a while. So, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you continually farming and in this industry?
Curiosity. I I I marvel at all the things that I don't know. Even if I'm just sitting on the tractor and mowing the orchard, which is something mundane, I'm always looking around at what's going on. I'm like, huh, what's on that leaf? Why is it doing that? Why does it look like
Hmm.
that? What's that bug? Is that, I'm or how can I make this better? What can I do here that's going to improve my bottom line, grow a better crop, you know,
So,
require less input?
so continued curiosity. This does
Yeah.
not bore you. There's never a dull moment, is what I'm hearing. So,
No, no. Uh, you realizing that you you never know everything is really important. The moment you think you know everything, you're done. you know, you know, you're not
so
going to
what
search
is
for more answers.
So as we kind of move forth, Christine, what is your own forecast or crystal ball of the almond industry, particularly in the Central Valley where you're farming, and also the connection with Agtech as well? Are we going to see more and more of use of that in the industry?
Definitely. Ag tech is what is going to make us be able to farm with even less labor than we're already. I mean, it's not as opposed to row crops or, picking vegetables in a field, we're pretty mechanized. But, and the labor maybe will go down some, but I think more importantly, the tech is actually going to help us make better decisions
Hmm.
about when to do things like water, when to do things to spray, like for a pest, if it's even necessary, how much nitrogen to put on, what form of nitrogen to put on, what's best for,
Mm-hmm.
the soils that you have. I think that's where technology and monitoring is going to play a big role. The caveat is, though, the technology has to be durable and it has to
Mm.
last and it has to be affordable. You can put out the best technology out there, but if I can't afford it,
Yeah.
and it's not going to pencil out in the end, you know, it won't be implemented by people. You have to be able to see a return on that investment. And if you put out the technology and it can't hold up to vibration on a tractor or the elements,
Mm-hmm.
'cause you're out there in the weather, we're not farming in a warehouse, you know, that's going to be an issue too. You need to make it be able to last because we design these orchards and we invest a ton of money in them and we want them to last 25
Yeah.
years. And you're not just going to go say like, oh, in 5 years I'm going to replace the irrigation
Right.
system.
Yeah. So, what's your prediction of the affordability and the, especially with small acreage farms? Do you think it's going to be more and more affordable for smaller farms when it comes to innovation? Or what do
I
you think?
hope the I hope the innovation becomes more and more affordable because the truth is the smaller grower that you are, the more in order to be able to survive, you're going to have to start learning, be able to start making decisions on your own instead of paying somebody to make decisions for
Yeah.
you, and being able to do some of that work on your own instead of paying somebody. And you're going to have to be able to use all the tech and the equipment that is required
Hmm.
to do that.
So, what do you do, Christine, when you're not farming?
um Garden, which is a form of farming.
Okay.
I love cooking. I really
Yeah.
really love cooking. I don't leave. And since COVID, I kind of became a farm hermit and I kind of love it. I do love music. And so
Uh-huh.
I know a lot of musicians. I don't play music very well. I'm a very good listener. And yeah, those are kind of my three big ones. I don't watch any TV. I don't exercise because work is exercise.
Right.
And I get in on an average day during the summer, I'll get in 10,000 steps without even doing,
Yeah.
you know,
Right. It's part of the work. It's part of the farming.
exactly.
What's your favorite? Like, do you have a signature dish that you really love to cook or
I
you're
love
known
making
for?
Indian food. I love making Indian food. I like making Mexican food too, but Indian food has kind of become a passion of mine. I grind the spices and everything. I'm not opening jars. I even can. I'll make sauces in big batches and then can them. Yeah.
Well, it sounds delicious. And also with the meetings that you hold, correct? With the Women in Almonds group, you have the pizza going as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I make my own dough and everything. And then I'm using all these sauces that I make from the garden year round and, preserve. And I'm
Mhm.
slapping all sorts of different things on very unusual pizzas, like a butternut harissa pizza with crispy kale and goat cheese, you know.
Um, Finally, is there something you'd want people, especially consumers, to know about the almond industry that they may not know about almond farmers or almond farming?
I think one of the coolest things about the almond industry is that we were about as zero waste of a crop as you can get out there. Because, people just think about the almond. We're just eating the almond and oh, it's a gallon a nut. But actually, you get so much for that
Mm.
gallon that people didn't even know about. So we have the shell that's around the almond, and that is actually now people are using that. There's been some research that said it can be made into green cement. Um,
Wow.
I
Did
know
not
that's a new
know
one. That was a new one that came out of UC Davis,
that. Hmm.
partially funded by the almond industry or the almond board. It's also made into biochar, which is a great soil amendment as well. And then the almond hull I talked about, it's
Yes.
being used. It's been used for a lot of different things. Oh, and bioplastics as well. Oh, and on top of that, then there's the wood. The wood, of course, we've been recycling that and putting it back in the ground to actually create or increase water holding capacity. But there's a company called the Herd Company that has found that by separating the cellulose and hemicellulose and cellulose and all, they can make fiber for clothing out of it.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, so the almond is part of your clothes.
Right, the wood, yeah. And so, and we
Yes.
basically take, so for that gallon, we're taking almost everything out of the orchard. No part of the almond gets wasted whatsoever. And we're sequestering carbon in the wood the whole time and cleaning up, carbon dioxide in the air. I mean, the Central Valley would probably be a little bit different without all these trees here.
That is really cool. I don't think I can see the almond the same way now after we've talked, Christine. You
Yeah.
got out of the almond, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of great things. So thank you so much, Christine, for your time and sharing your story with us. We are signing off until the next episode. Please check out Women Innovators in Food and Farming. Thank you very much.